announcements. Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Davis.
Present.
Ogle.
Here.
Sayers. Here. Pacto.
Here.
Potter.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Woodard.
Here.
Ballard.
Here.
Romaine.
Here.
Pugh.
Here.
Banter.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Okay, item 2 on the agenda, if everyone has an agenda in front of them, after board action, when we get to the receive and file part, we want to move E and F up first because we have just F. Okay, we want to move F up because we have a guest here that has to be at another place, so we can put them speaking first if there's no objections. Any discussion? Any approval of the? Are you satisfied? Excuse me, I'm babbling. Does everyone approve the agenda as written?
I'll move as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda approved. Let's go to the minutes of the September 24th meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look through the minutes? And
Move to approve.
Second.
all those in favor to approve the minutes as written?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Now we will go strictly to board action.
All right. Item A, cemetery fees. There are no new changes from last month when we went over in detail and gave you the presentation. Ganesh Gampat is here, our cemetery manager. We're glad to take any questions you have. I like to say this for the public more than the board, but after this process, we're still not done with the public review process. It'll go to the city council up for one reading on this one, actually. Cemetery fees is one reading, if I recall. So, all right.
Any questions on cemetery fees for Ganesh or Ben? Okay. It's nice to have the cemetery fees on the agenda since basically March, isn't it? Every month that
It has been.
So with that in mind and no questions, Rebecca, would you please call the vote?
Davis.
Yes.
Ogle.
Yes.
Sayers.
Yes.
Pacto.
Yes.
Potter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Woodard.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Romaine.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Banter.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Cemetery fees passes and will be forwarded on to the council for their approval.
Thank you.
Okay, part 2, B.
All right, I'm gonna have Richard come up. Last meeting, we went in detail over the park rules. Just a reminder again, not just for the board, but the public, is the rules are different from the ordinance section, which you've spent a lot of time on this last year. We thank you for that. These rules are now things that aren't listed as ordinances. The example I like to use is, we don't make an ordinance to not run at the pool, but we have rules at the pool that have to be enforced. As city legal has advised us, in order to be a rule, just like an ordinance, the park board and the city council have to approve this. This is the first time in probably the history of this department we put all the rules into one document. So sports complexes, cemeteries, pools, you name it, they're all in one document. I'm gonna ask Richard just to give you a quick overview, because we've heard from a few of you, and we thank you that those that were able to take time and share us your comments. We'll give you a quick overview of what we've changed. You can see the strikeouts, what have been changed. And again, this process too will go on to city council subject to your approval. It doesn't have to move, but if it can, we would appreciate that.
Chair Davis, members of the Parks and Recreation Board, Richard Brown, Assistant Director. Like Ben talked about, what we have tonight in front of you is the updated and we hope kind of final version that we'd ask you to consider tonight. Probably the biggest changes you're going to see between last month and this month are in the first few pages of the document under purpose and background, user conduct guidelines, and kind of general park ordinance rules of applicability. That's just a lot of change to make sure it made sense and was consistent and really set up the entire document. So then what you got through those, it was all just rules after that. Probably the biggest changes beyond the rules that you saw last month are the addition of a few things at our sports complex and our aquatic centers. So things such as not bringing in food from the outside, no tailgating, just ensuring that it's consistent with how those facilities are operated today. And then also under the pools and aquatic centers, the ability for anyone that's renting the pool to request the services of the concessionaire if they desire to do so. Previously, the draft had over 75 people. Otherwise, I promise we didn't really make all those changes. Just the way the markup works is it looks like a lot more changes than actually there were out there. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions or concerns.
Richard,
or comments.
regarding these ordinances, if some of them are need to be changed? Is that a process that starts with this? Is that to start with you administratively and then approved by Ann and then go to the council, or does it come back with?
It'll go from my office to this board to the city council. So any changes or additions, if we would get a new facility that we don't have today, we'd have to put rules into that and we have
Okay.
to bring it through. So I tell everybody that the rules are always subject to change. So if there's something here that you're just not sure of, let's talk about it. Or we can always come back to you a year from now and say, here's how these rules went, and here's some of the themes we heard or saw as far as our management of those rules. It's a living document. Again, it's a gift to the next generation. We're going to have this document all in one place, so we'll be able to dust this off every year if need be.
And just kind of to reiterate on the section 3, which starts on page 7, those are just sections we thought would be the most applicable across the park system that people would want to know that should come with this document. That's not changing them in any way. They are adopted by the city council as part of chapter 74. We just, as a larger document, wanted to have what we thought were the most popular or be the most used or most looked up sections in here, but they are not being proposed to be changed in any way from where they are now under chapter 74 and the other chapters as well.
Now, is this our final vote today before it goes on to council?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
It
Unless
doesn't
for
have
some
to
reason-
be, we would ask that you consider that. And that timing is simply this, is you don't think about it, but you start looking at how you inform the public of rules and changes to rules. We have a website to update, we have signs that we have to order through a procurement process that we do not control today. We have to install those signs out in the park system and the pools. So this is gonna take over the winter to put all these things together in a spring installation. So that's what we're trying to accomplish behind the scenes.
Now, also to be clear, moving forward on the rules, that does not include Waterworks Park, which we have nothing, no say in that, correct?
Only Des Moines parks that are today
Okay.
under our jurisdiction. So no Waterworks, no Easter Lake, no Fort Des Moines, no 4 Mile
skate
Greenway,
park.
no skate park.
Okay,
Those facilities are not underneath our jurisdiction.
okay, okay. Well, I know that you've spent a lot of time on this, so let's take a moment and see, board members, what questions regarding this? And then there was silence. He's not going to give us anything else to read at today's meeting, so I think we're good for at
Yeah,
least.
cemetery rules are on the cuffs to come forward, I'll tell you that, I'll give you a heads up, that's the last one, I hope. If there's something you don't like, it's because Ann made us do it, if there's something you like, it was our idea, so.
Well, with no questions, shall we entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Rebecca, would you please call the roll?
Davis.
Yes.
Vogel.
Yes.
Sayers.
Yes.
Acto.
Yes.
Potter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Woodard.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Domain.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Banter.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It passes, and now it's on to council.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let's move to receive and file, and we're going to move down to Part F and go with the golf fees and badges first.
All right, we have our golf operators here. I would like to just start off by saying we're following our normal process. If you've been on the board for a few years, you know that this time of the year, we usually bring you any changes. That starts off by contract language that allows our golf operator, Ned Chido, who is making his way up, to propose any changes to fees, badges, rules, you name it. Then the golf committee looks at those. The golf committee has done that. They are recommending these 2 changes. From here, the Park and Recreation Board then has 2 months to look at this. So this will be back as board action at the next meeting, subject to your agreement today, and then again on the city council again for those rules. So 2 simple changes, I'll just highlight them. They're asking to add $1 to the cart fee. That's the only fee they're asking to change. And new this year is expanding the badge program. And when I say badge, some people think of season passes. We call it a badge. That's just the nomenclature we've always used, but some people call it a season pass. So today we have a season pass that gets you 3 golf courses that we own and operate, plus a Polk County course, Jester Park. Recently, the city of Altoona purchased a golf course. For the first time in their history, they'll have a city-owned facility, Terrace Hill. They are asking us, since it's a city-owned facility and they've partnered and contracted with the same operating group that's here today that runs our golf courses and Jester, to add that as an option, so when a consumer wants a season pass, they would have 5 courses. That would be the 5th one. That's the summary. Ned's here to entertain any questions you might have on any of those two items.
Steve, looks like you have a question.
No, I think it's a great thing to add a fifth course to the universal pass. Are you still calling that?
It's a great option. I think that's what separates our golf courses, the ability to have more bang for your buck. Golfers like to try new courses as well as they always usually have a home course too, is what we see. So this positions our golf courses in a much better spot to have versatility, to have different events. So you might have an event going on at one course, but you still have 2 or 3 other courses open for general play. I think that's a good thing for our courses. And you all know that we're all big fans of our operator. They've done a great job. They fulfill their contract to the T, so we appreciate having them as partners.
Ned, what, if you were to compare the Altoona Golf Course, and I know nothing about that, to, what is it called, Terrace Hill? Where does that fall in line with our city golf courses? Which one would be the closest in representation?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Park Board, Ned Chido with C Corporation and CS Corporation. Terrace Hills is similar, maybe slightly more, slightly busier than Grandview, less than Blank, more than Grandview. It caters to somewhat of a different crowd, which is a plus. Gets us a new group of potential customers, and that's they do a tremendous amount of outing business for companies and groups and charities, and so that's kind of been their niche in the past. The city of Altoona has an interest in promoting the golf course because they see themselves as very much of an up-and-coming community. It's very aggressive, growing like crazy, and they would like to have an amenity such as a golf course so that they become somewhat of a bigger player like Ankeny and the city of Des Moines. And so they are very interested in making it a first-class facility and making it an amenity that they can be proud of and that offers somewhat of a different opportunity for the golfing public. We plan to do considerable amount of investing in upgrading the course, so it will be better than what it is now, hopefully. And we think each of our facilities provides a unique playing experience and caters truly to different groups or segments of the golfing population. Although we have a lot of crossover play because golfers like to travel, they do tend to have home courses. In this course, the people that consider this course a home course are not distracting or detracting from any of our other facilities. We see as a positive for the city courses with the universal badge because it does get golfers traveling around and playing our city courses that would not normally do that. We experienced that with the Jester Park edition, and it's become very popular with the golfing community. It in its own little way, creates a good feeling about the metropolitan area, kind of brings them together. And the golfing public senses that, feels very positive about that. It's been very popular, and has increased our sales in the season pass area. And so we recommend it highly, and we think it'll be good for everybody.
Yardage-wise, how does that fit in? Yardage-wise on the courses, where does Terrace Hill fit in?
It's longer than Grandview and shorter than Blank. It's right in that niche. So, like I say, every course is just a little different. It's not as it's got a little more hills to it than Grandview does, but yet it's not real hilly. But it has a lot of trees. It has a little more water features to it. So it's just a different segment, different place.
I had one last question. When we brought Jester Park on, did we Were there any unforeseen liabilities in bringing that on to our universal badge, and do you expect any
No, not
issues?
at all. It worked out very seamlessly. Plain public adapted to it very quickly. We are not aware of any concern that anybody had on its part, and we think it was a positive, and we think the public thinks it was a positive, so
Thank you.
we recommend it highly.
How old a course is it?
Say that again.
How old is the course?
How old is it? It is older than blank by, I don't know, 10 years or so. So that'd make it probably,
Rocky's saying 1963. Is that right?
yeah, that'd be about right. That's what I figured.
It's pretty good, though. You were going to get it right without his
Off the top of
help.
my head, not bad. Pretty flat, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little older. You can see that in the trees.
It's a good thing.
I know that
Let
Ben
me one
stated
other.
that, go ahead, I'm
The
sorry.
cart thing, we're asking for a $1 increase there. We haven't increased that rate for quite a while. And at Grandview, we may not go to $16. We're at $14 there right now. We may keep that a little lower. But we're buying a totally new fleet of golf carts. We're buying 280 brand-new golf carts. So that's kind of why we're asking for the increase.
You're buying them instead of leasing them, Ned?
Well, we always have the option to purchase them. So it's a lease purchase kind of arrangement. Generally, in the last couple go-arounds, we've leased them and then turned them back in for new carts, and that's what we're doing with our current fleet. So it starts out as a lease, but we always have the option to buy, and we determine that based on the condition of the carts at the end of 4 years and what's out in the marketplace. This time around, we shopped a little bit, and we got some very aggressive proposals. We got some additional trinkets to our carts in the way of additional GPS features as part of the price, and so we feel good about the deal, and so we went ahead with it.
How long does the golf cart last?
It's a function of your usage. Now, some courses, your private courses, they'll take golf carts and are able to keep them 8, 9, 10 years, some cases. It's a function of how your playing traffic takes care of them. The engines on the carts are good for a long time. It's the cosmetics that you have to be aware of. And in the public setting, we get some rough usage at times.
Bumper cars.
And so we get our carts beat up a little quicker than you would in a private cart setting. So we figure 4 to 5 years. If we got really lucky, we might get 6 years, but we're generally at 4 years and get a new fleet.
Will the new carts have GPS?
They will at where they are right now. We went into the negotiation looking at the possibility of not renewing the GPS function at Blank and Waveland, is because initially their price was out of sight, and we had a lot of service support problems in that the monitors were going down frequently, and we were finding ourselves with 6, 7 carts without the monitors, and that's not good. Somebody comes and wants a cart, and you got GPS on everything else, and you got to rent them a cart without GPS, and you got to go through the rigmarole explaining, and the company was not getting them back to us in a timely fashion. So we negotiated a time frame that we think is workable, and they're giving us new monitors, which should help our stability program as far as them going down. So we decided to go ahead and renew it.
Any other questions for Mr. Shido? Any other questions? I know Ben has stated that we get a lot of compliments from your staff and the maintenance that you do on the golf courses, and, you know, they just seem to be very premier in the area and handled very well.
We appreciate that. We thank you. We try to do that, and we know it's important for us and important for our mission on the part of the city and the Parks Board. So that's one of our goals, and it's always nice to hear that compliment, because generally you don't hear the compliments, you hear the complaints. I must say, and with all modesty and not trying to jinx myself, we have been getting good comments.
Well, if no other questions, we thank you, and Rocky, thank you for being here tonight, and Ned, thank you, and thank you for your sponsorship in the Parks and Rec golf outing that we have.
We enjoy that day, and we look forward to it every year. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Should receive and file.
And so we'll have a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. I want to go back to Part A, up on board action. I know that we voted on it unanimously, but did I call for a motion?
No, you didn't.
I don't think so.
Andrea, how did you let that slip by?
It's true, I didn't.
So Andrea, would you
I was
please,
questioning it.
would you please make a motion?
I would love to make a motion to approve the park cemetery fees. It's the one
Go.
we're going for.
Second.
Second? And we'll just do it by hands. All in favor of that, we can just raise our hand. And it was unanimous, and it's unanimous again. Thank you very, very much.
Now we're legal again.
Now we're legal. Thanks, guys.
All
Now
right.
we're going back up to C, which is the aquatic season report.
All right. Up is Laura Briggs, our aquatics manager, and Tim Smith, who also runs the wading pool program. Laura's up first. This is your State of the Union, how last season went, with some attendance facts and some things that they want to share with you. So, Laura, you're up first.
That's it.
Alrighty. Chair Davis and members of the Parks and Recreation Board, I'm Laura Briggs, Parks and Recreation Supervisor for the City of Des Moines Parks and Rec Department. I will be presenting a brief recap to you today about the 2019 aquatic season along with my teammate Tim Smith. I do want to say John Hagener, Park and Recreation Superintendent, was a great support system to both myself and Chelsea Reese. Chelsea joined our team in January as Recreation Program Coordinator. Chelsea oversees the swim lesson program, staff training, and a little bit of everything in between. She's here this evening. Say hello to Chelsea.
Stand up with just Chelsea, just so everybody knows who you are. All right.
Our main pool season kicked off on June 1st and wrapped up on August 18th. A hailstorm came through in May that damaged all of the pool grading at Northwest Family Aquatic Center, which was originally scheduled to open Memorial Day weekend. We did a rush order of grading, but with the timing and Teach Out Family Aquatic Center being set to go the third week of May, the decision was made to open Teach Out. And with this change, we did schedule Northwest to be open through Labor Day. We follow an approved rotation schedule for Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend, as we did last year, that provides an opportunity for one aquatic center to open early and another to stay open later. The 2020 schedule, Teach Out will open for Memorial Day and NAHAS will stay open through Labor Day. As you view the attendance numbers, you can see that this season we had an increase in visits from 2018. The total attendance was 96,313 visits. Our 5-year average is 104,472. Just to give a snippet of our weather this season, the average temperature in June was 72 degrees with 11 days of precipitation. July was 77.65 degrees with 10 days of precipitation. And in August, we were 74.3 degrees with 9 days of precipitation.
I'm going to pause, Laura, there just for a second, let that settle in. So if you think about why there's a reduction in usage, I would say first, weather is a big player in attendance at pools, but I'd also have you think about, as we open new Spraygrounds, that are free options in the wading pools too. So we're unique that we have so many different aquatic services and so many different fees from free to the aquatic centers.
This summer, we employed 119 certified lifeguards. 43% of them were returning employees. We also employed 25 swim instructors. We classify a swim instructor as a certified water safety instructor. We had lifeguard staff that actually did assist and instruct our swim lesson program, which do not fall under that swim instructor classification. This puts our instructor number to 75 staff members. We offered several certification opportunities throughout the year to meet the high demands we need to staff our facilities and swim programs during the summer. This past year, we offered 4 lifeguard training courses at North High School and Birdland Swimming Pool. We certified 7 lifeguards during spring break, 18 lifeguards in May, and 24 lifeguards in June. We also offered a water safety instructor course, which certified 12 instructors prior to the first swim lesson session. We have partnered with the community. As you can see, we provide a facility to several outside groups. Team practices, swim meets, and water polo practices took place at both Ashworth and Birdland. The member numbers in the first table do not represent attendance, rather the number of members in that organization. These members could use our facilities once per week or as much as twice per day. The 34th Annual Des Moines Water Polo Tournament brought in 303 athletes and 250 spectators over the course of 3 days at Ashworth. Des Moines Water Polo did provide free youth clinics sporadically throughout the summer to spread the word about the sport. And Des Moines Swim Federation annual swim meet held at Birdland brought 500 athletes and approximately 800 spectators. We had several aquatic special events. This is just a snippet. We had Family Days, which was $5 per family, one Friday in June, July, and August. Doggie Dive took place on August 18th at Ashworth, Birdland, Nahas, and Teach Out, and September 2nd at Northwest. We had half-price admission nights, which was half-price admission Monday through Thursday from 5 to 6:30. We did a Father Day special, so it was free admission for fathers with a child admission. We did National Swim a Lap Day on June 24th, which was half-price admission for everyone who came to the pools. Military Appreciation Day includes free admission for active duty, retired, and veteran military personnel, and half-price admission for immediate family members. And National Parents Day, we did free admission for parents with a child admission. Doggie Dive remains a popular event with dogs and owners enjoying themselves on one of the final days of summer. The total dogs that enjoyed the pools were 232. This season, the weather was a bit overcast in August, but the numbers jumped the final day at Northwest Family Aquatic Center with 109 dogs. The pups that showed up had a great time. Some highlights from the season. Our park staff works behind the scenes to operate and maintain our pools daily. They are available and ready at a moment's notice and do a great job keeping the pools running safely, so big kudos to them. We added additional shade structures at Birdland, Nahas, Northwest, and Teach Out. We added welcome benches to all facilities, and we maximized space with new fencing around Birdland concession area. We launched Fitness Hour at Ashworth Swimming Pool, which included a class called Total Aqua Body that was instructed by a certified trainer. The total attendance was 168, which was an average of 10 participants per class. We partnered with Des Moines Fire Department staff in in-service trainings with EMS personnel. We received new kickboards from Variety, the children's charity, and Teach Out was painted prior to this season. You are used to Teach Out being blue, but this season we did paint it white. Let's talk about swim lessons. We offered 6 sessions for swim lessons this year. We eliminated the 2-week class option. Our maximum enrollment potential with this format is 4,405 participants. The blue line represents the number of participants in our program over the past 3 years. This year we provided swim lessons to 2,969 people, which is an increase of 423 from 2018. The green line represents the number of participants we provided with scholarships. Through a continued collaboration between the City of Des Moines Parks and Recreation Department and Des Moines Public Schools ELL Summer Program, 376 children in grades K through 12 received swim lessons in June and July. These children come from non-English speaking families and have been in our country less than 2 years. These children do not know the dangers of swimming in lakes and rivers that they find close to their homes here in our country. This was our 8th year providing swim lessons to English language learner students. We used Birdland, NAHAS, and Teach Out to provide these lessons. We spoke with Vin, who's the ELL Accountability and Support Coordinator for Des Moines Public Schools, and he said the reason for growth was that they, the program, were actively working more with families to make sure the attendance did not drop in the middle of the summer. Another reason is that the children really liked the activities and they participated wholeheartedly. All students in this program receive 100% subsidy. In 2019, we provided $32,780 in financial assistance. English language learner students received $30 in financial assistance per participant. The total scholarships given to ELL participants was $11,280. The remaining $21,500 was provided to groups and students that qualify for GRASP. Those who qualify receive $25 in financial assistance per participant for swim lesson. The Centennial Campaign is a multi-year action that will inspire people to sign up for swimming and water safety lessons at local facilities. It's a national action to cut drowning rates in half. The cities were chosen due to the higher than average overall drowning rates or the higher number of fatal drownings in those areas. American Red Cross reached out to Des Moines Parks and Recreation and asked if we would like to be part of the Centennial Campaign. We worked closely with American Red Cross and our legal department to ensure the partnership was a great one. We received support in terms of materials for the programs, including swim caps and goggles for our ELL participants. We received $7,500 in funding to support our swim lesson program and also included waived training fees for staff certifications. Well, they've done it again. With the support and involvement of both Variety, the Children's Charity, and Friends of Des Moines Parks, our swim lesson program can be provided to families in need of financial support. The commitment and donations make a difference in the lives of children in our community, and we so appreciate it. Now I will turn it over to Tim Smith, Parks and Recreation Supervisor, to cover other aquatic happenings in Des Moines Parks and Recreation.
Does anyone have any questions for Laura? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Chair Davis and members of the Des Moines Park and Recreation Board, I'm Tim Smith, Park and Recreation Supervisor. I'm here to talk to you about the 2019 wading pool season. This summer, the Park and Recreation Department once again provided free, safe wading pool facilities for area residents. Wading pools combined with swimming pools and spray grounds to offer Des Moines residents a wide variety of aquatic options. The wading pool season lasts a total of 16 weeks. All of our pools are open Monday through Friday, while only the splash pools operate on weekends. Each pool has at least one trained staff person on site. Staff duties include monitoring pool patrons, checking chlorine levels, and recording attendance. We struggled this year to staff each pool, leading to early season pool closures on a rotational basis. All pools were fully staffed by mid-June. 8 of the city's 12 wading pools are traditional pools. Multiple generations have attended these pools, which do not have spray features. This year, over 10,000 residents attended a traditional pool, which some prefer due to a quieter atmosphere and convenient location.
That's over 8 pools, is pretty.
The 8 traditional pools are available for private rentals outside of pool hours of operation. To cover the cost of staff, pools are rented at a rate of $35 per hour. Renting a pool is a low-cost, safe, and fun way to celebrate special events. This year, wading pools were rented on 12 occasions. While our traditional pools have much to offer, the majority of our patrons attend the 4 splash pools, one of which is located in each ward of the city. Each splash pool has multiple spray features, is larger and newer than traditional pools, and operates for extended hours. We had a 7% drop in attendance this summer. In addition to the milder temperatures Laura mentioned, I believe this can be attributed to expansion of Sprayground locations and the closing of Tower and Sheridan wading pools. I expect that as new Spraygrounds open and traditional pools close, this decrease will continue. As you can see, 86% of our patrons attended the 4 splash pools. Patron feedback has consistently mentioned the preference of pools with aquatic features that spray water. Spraygrounds are located at 11 parks throughout the city. Unlike wading pools, Spraygrounds do not require staff, as they do not have standing water. Open through September, the Spraygrounds are programmed to operate from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Between these hours, patrons can turn the features on with the push of a button. From aquatic centers to traditional wading pools, Des Moines offers a wide variety of options that help ensure the aquatic needs of our residents are met. This concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank Laura for joining me tonight, and now we can answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Tim, I have a question. On the rental of the traditional pools, does the rental, can they rent during the day, or does that have to be after the pool is closed for the day?
It's outside of hours of normal operation.
All right. And then are the splash pools, not the Spraygrounds, but the splash pools do not have to be staffed, am I correct there?
The splash pools are staffed. The
Because we
Spraygrounds
have
are not.
standing water in them?
Right, correct,
Okay,
right.
all right. And then the Spraygrounds are never staffed?
Correct.
Now, do the Spraygrounds well, there's no hours on them, so are they able to rent?
9 to 8.
Okay,
Spraygrounds are 9 a.m. to 8.
but you can't rent them really?
Really can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And splash pools, can you rent those at $35 an hour? So it's just the traditional ones?
Right.
Okay. Questions, staff or members?
The wading pools, is there a plan to like replace those eventually, or?
Yep, that's the plan. So the plan is to, as the budget allows and as the city council approves the budget, we'll replace all the wading pools with the spray ground. We will no longer invest in the splash pools. When we last built a splash pool, which was 2006, those were $1 million each. That's because they recirculate water, they use chemicals, they have to pass a state of Iowa rules when it comes to pool and certified pool operators. That's why the spray ground has been a much better solution, because I talk about the length of season and the lack of staff that you have to have. You can always put staff there if your budget allows at a spray ground, but you're not required to. And the spray grounds will go almost 6-7 months as far as the operation, whereas a splash pool is only from Memorial Day to Labor Day, as you saw, basically that time frame, because that's when staff we can hire is out of school and college, etc. The next two that are on the radar that are in the plan are Gifted, as you might recall from the Kelly family. Drake's going to go to a spray ground, and then Bates is going to go to a spray ground. Those are fully gifted 100% right now at this point. We haven't got through the design phase, but very large, nice gift from the Kelly family.
For my own knowledge of the traditional wading pools, the life expectancy of those is it's on a short lease on the traditional ones, am I right? And then the splash pools, those are going to be phased out over what time period would you say?
You know, the wading pools, I'll tell you that, you know, they've lasted since the WPA era, but they take repairs. There are a lot of concrete, a lot of plumbing, and it's Iowa, so the freeze-thaw cycle of our ground can play havoc. Depends on how much freeze-thaw we see. The spray pools will eventually get in line, but our current plan is only after we remove all the wading pools will we attack spray pools. Does that make sense?
Yeah, after the traditional pools
Yes.
are gone, then you're going to go toward the splash pools.
Yes. Or the other thing that would change would be a state law change that would cost us more money today to operate those. Those will be easier to maybe retrofit into Spraygrounds as they already have spray features built into the mechanicals.
Ben, do you do any counts of the wading pools versus splash pools versus the splash pads?
Yep. So Tim, can you go back to that slide? The Spraygrounds we do not count because they don't have staff assigned to them.
I think it's back one more.
Here it is right there.
No, I thought it was 8,000.
Well, yeah, so first I want to show you this.
Okay.
I'll go back a slide after this. So the blue part of the pie is the splash pools, which is those 4. And then the remaining 8 traditional pools is the 14%. Now, would you go back to that next slide, Tim? Thank you. So that 76,000 number is broken up by the 80, whatever, plus the 13.
Could you go back to that other slide a minute? I wasn't sure I was clear. The 4 wading pools represents the 14%?
Nope, the blue piece is the splash pools, so the Union, Crevero, ML King, and Ashby, those 4.
And when you say traditional pools, you're meaning?
The wading pools.
The wading pools.
Yep.
Okay. I just make the comment, though, and I'm sure Ben will proceed with caution, in terms of quality experience, I think you find most parents of small kids will tell you the wading pools and splash pools are superior to those of the splash
Spraygrounds.
Yep. Spraygrounds. And I don't know if you'll ever have ability in your budget with staffing to try and attempt to do some counts.
Yep.
But, and you know, maybe one day we'll be in an era when money is not a big a deal, but it seemed to me to recognize that we're moving toward the splash pads due to a budgetary issue, not because the splash pads are necessarily more popular than the wading pools or splash pools.
Yeah. I think there's definitely different opinions out there. I would say that Spraygrounds are widely popular with a set of folks, and I'd say that there's still a group of folks that, like you just mentioned, that want that little depth of water. And that's where I think in the long term, those 4, make sure I use the same terminology here again, splash pools, those 4 will always be here for a long, long time. And if you've ever noticed, by design on a map, there's 1 in every ward. That was done on purpose. But I also think that if I'm lucky in my career, we would see the remaining 8 happen to be transitioned into something likely the Sprayground, which is the current plan. But yes, I agree with what you're saying. It's just two challenges there. The staffing challenge from what we can afford to pay, plus the budgetary capital cost of replacing and transitioning those. That makes sense.
Understood, yeah.
Tim, can you go back one more slide also? I think that we had the picture, one more back. We had the picture of, well, I guess I was, there's one that you have 8,000.
That was I quoted a number of 10,000 attendants. Is that what you're looking for?
It had a picture of the traditional wading pool.
How's that? Is that what you wanted?
Yes, and see over 10,000 patrons.
At the 8?
Of those 8. And those are all pretty well dated. In fact, I think it was our board here that convinced the city manager to keep those open because a lot of those are in impoverished areas. And so remember, because he was going to close, or his suggestion was to close some of those last season. And I think our board was
You did a great job.
very active in getting them to stay open and probably continue to stay open until, because those kids have little options in the area and stuff. I want to go back to Lloyd's comment. Lloyd, and maybe I misunderstood you. I can see the splash pools are very popular, but you're saying the splash pools are the Spraygrounds you're not a fan of? Is that?
No, I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not a fan of them. I am a fan of them. I think particularly for younger kids, the wading pools and splash pools are a better quality experience for the kids and the families. And I think probably if you ever did counts and included ages and compared the different facilities, I think that you'd bear that out, that the wading pools and the splash pools are highly sought after by parents with younger kids. And so I'm just, and I understand the dynamic and what we're doing. I just you know, want the board to be sure that they know that those wading pools and splash pools, you know, especially for the small kids, are, you know, still very, very popular. And I'd be curious to see if we could ever do a study and see what the counts look like and compare them, if that was actually borne out in the numbers.
I totally agree with you, but my experience with seeing little kids and stuff is that for the splash pool, we have to wait till the pool supervisor shows up and fills it, right? Whereas, but the spray ground, I've seen those packed as early as 9 in the morning where kids can push the button and stuff. And so they're very popular also.
Put some thought to it. I think what we can do is kind of like the trail counts. We could kind of come up with our own little formula to project what happens at a spray ground. As long as you understand, we can show you the formula. It's only as good as we think it's the fairest. And we're government, so we always dial it back as far as being conservative when we count things. But yeah, let us take next year and come up with an idea of maybe sampling this a little bit. I think it's a fair comment both ways.
And I agree with you. I just think some of our focus needs to be on how do we keep a lifeline on these traditional wading pools until we have a building to take their place or a pool built to take their place.
When we had last year the discussion with the council, remember, it's a really, in the grand scheme of a budget of the city being $600 million-ish, it was a $35,000 operation for 8 pools.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good value. So, all right. Okay. Other questions you have?
I wanted to ask, in the main pools, the big pools, there are opportunities for splash pools there. I mean, there are splash pools in our 5 main pools, right?
The 5 big pools?
Yeah.
Are you asking if they have spray features in them?
No, if they have splash pool, little,
Like
not
a children's?
deep.
Like a baby pool.
They do. So,
Wading pools?
yes.
Wading
So
pools. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep,
Thank
at
you.
Birdland and Ashworth, there are 2 separate pools for little kids that are separate from the big basin of water.
Right.
The 3 other pools we term as, sorry for all this terminology, aquatic centers, because Ashworth and Birdland were deep well pools. That's what they were called when they were built. When we switched as a society to aquatic centers, that meant 0 depth or the beach entrance. So yes, so we didn't no longer create separate areas because you already had those areas. You have a separate spill pool for the slides that dump you out in some of those facilities, but for the most part, there isn't a separate children's area at the 3 aquatic centers.
Okay.
Does that help?
So yes, so there's an admission, of course, to
Yes, the $2 and the
big-
$3 admission.
Yes, so that's the downside
Yes,
for, yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
It's still one of the lowest emissions in the entire metro area, maybe even beyond. So
Anything else for Tim?
just want to point out those 2 do a great job for us. They really
they-
do, and they manage a handful of kids, as you might guess. And so, for this day and age, to make these facilities run the way they do, and bridge the generational gap of challenges we have with the rate we can pay, is these 2. You don't see them in the office downstairs in the summertime, but they're out every night almost. So my hat's off to both of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Laura.
Well, this is a really good segue. You had a discussion last year at pools, and so I want to set you up. We listened and we did our homework. We asked you, and you allowed us to spend the last pool season instead of during last year's budget season to talk about hours and restoring hours. And for those that weren't here, you've read the blue letter. We had an hour reduction. We had many reductions over the time of Parks and Recreation. And one of the approaches of the board at the time was to share the wealth among what we call the service lines: trails, parks, aquatics, sports complexes. At that time, aquatics took a $60,000 reduction, and we went out and had a really intense public process. We had 3 public meetings across the city, and we came up with the hour reductions. And as you talked about last year, with budgets and sales tax discussions took place and were fruitful, and you maybe saw library hours restored, Board Member Ogle asked if pool hours could be restored. So we spent the summer surveying, talking to the actual users while it was fresh in their mind, while they were at our pools. And John Hagener, our longtime aquatics manager, is going to give you a presentation on options. I want you to know, at the executive board meeting 2 weeks ago, we explained that there were lots of options. We looked at lots of things, but we didn't want to spend that whole evening going over 20 different options with you. So I've taken the leadership role of narrowing it down to 3 options plus the 4th, which is remain the same. We want to show you that tonight to get your feedback. The city manager came to our executive session and listened to the discussion. I think he's going to entertain anything you come up with. But without further ado, I'm going to have John take his time and walk you through the process, as well as the potential options for you to decide on. And we expect tonight nothing, unless you really wanted to make a recommendation, but we would bring this back next meeting in November, and it would be inserted, whatever happens, if there is a change proposed by this board, it would be submitted to the city manager's office for the city council with all the different things from 13 departments that are being asked for right now. All right, without further ado, I've set it up for you, John, and you can take it from here.
You practically gave it, so well done. Thanks, Ben. Chair Davis, members of the Park and Recreation Board, John Hagan, our Park and Recreation Superintendent. As Ben mentioned, this evening we want to present options for your consideration of the expanded public hours. Now, before we jump into those, just by way of a little bit of background, you should know that, as Ben mentioned, currently their hours are Monday through Saturday, 1 to 6:30, Sunday, 1 to 5. Remember, then we have lap swim from noon to 1. We've talked a lot about pools and everything else today. So in the larger pools, of course, in Canada we call them tanks. The deep well pools, as Ben mentioned, that's of course Ashworth and Birdland. That's where we provide the lap swim from noon to 1. And then of course at all of our pools we have the AM lessons, almost for 4 hours, and 4 hours, and then in the evening almost for 2 hours. Prior to 2012. Those were the hours, as Ben mentioned. Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 7. Friday through Sunday, 12:30 to 6:30. It was 2012. City Council indeed adopted this 2-year budget. We were asked to reduce our subsidy by $60,000. Several public meetings were had. North High School, I remember going to several there. Staff presented options. We got lots of input from the public. Where we landed was a reduction by 1 hour at all the pools. 1 hour opening, decreasing them by 1 hour. That's where we landed on $60,000. That's where the pool hours have been ever since.
Sorry, the difference between an aquatic center and swimming pools?
Yep, aquatic center. So we have our 3 aquatic centers, Nahas, Northwest, and Teach Out. So that's the 0 depth entry. They've got some slide features. And then the deep water pools, Ashworth and Birdland, 700,000 gallons of water. Usually a 3-meter board at both of them, high dive board, if you will. Big pools, little pools, if you will. Does that help?
Yes.
But all 5 charge, which is the same fee to get in.
As Ben mentioned, we launched this pool hour survey. The results are before us. We sent this out by way of of course, the World Wide Web, so lots and lots of people had the opportunity. We had 179 people respond. Keep in mind, Laura just told us that this year attendance was just north of 96,000 folks. We sent it out to season pass holders, some of our very own interest groups, and some of our own leagues and other participants, as well as, of course, on the web, anybody could go. So while we had 179 respond, we still believe that's a pretty low number. With that said, clearly the results are before us. 80% said they're not satisfied with the current swim hours. The rest of it, quite frankly, was right in the middle. 47% weekdays, or weekends rather, 53% weekdays, and of course, right in the middle in terms of whether they wanted more or less evening swim times or morning. This chart just reflects the attendance of the pools over the past 5 years. Really, the takeaway of this slide is to tell you, Lloyd, thanks for your question. Again, Ashworth and Birdland, over the years, and this is the past 5 years, have a lower attendance than our 3 aquatic centers. Laura mentioned just about our swim lesson program. She mentioned, of course, that last year we provided swim lessons for 2,969 people. That's an increase of 423 from the previous year. I want to give I truly believe that's due to the credit of Laura as well as Chelsea, and just their attention to detail and just their passion for just teaching the kids lessons. That's a huge increase. Our maximum enrollment potential for this format, Laura said it 9 minutes ago. Ben said we could give away a season swim pass if anybody remembered. I'm just kidding. Anybody remember?
Might.
If it was 4,405 if we maxed out, if we filled every swim slot. So that's our max. Our goal for 2020 is to increase by 5%, which is right around 150 participants. You'll see that the graphs in front of you, the one on the left, has a general trend, once again, in a good direction, more kids participating. The graph on the right reflects the red as far as is the offerings of the morning swim lessons and the enrollment, and then, of course, the evening swim lessons. Keep in mind, the evening swim lessons are still extremely popular. It appears lower because they're only 2 hours versus the 4 hours in the morning. There's three main factors that staff wanted to consider before we present these options to you. The ability to recruit and retain staff. Tim Smith just mentioned a few moments ago that our waiting pools had to close early in some cases because we had staff, a shortage, if you will. Luckily this year we did pretty well with the pools, and again, a credit to Laura for just getting out there and recruiting lots of staff, but that was a consideration. The other one was the opportunity for continued expansion of our swim lesson program. We still truly believe that it's a critical need in our community. You don't have to look at the paper and the history that tells you we have a drowning in Polk County for every summer, the past several summers. So we believe teaching kids to swim is still a critical need. And then finally, the opportunity for, yes, increased open swim time hours. Those were the three factors.
And those were in no particular order, those were just the
Correct.
factors. Yeah.
Correct. This was in your park board packet, and again, thank you. This is a lot of information that a credit to Laura for help putting this together. The only thing maybe more complicated was figuring out the difference between a splash pad and a spray ground, or our park rules regulations. But thank you to Laura for helping this. That was your kind of ahead of time. It certainly lists all the things I'm going to go over in these options, but I just want to walk you through these options real briefly. Option 1 talks about later all summer. What that means is we kind of divided this slide up. You can see the swimming pools, Ashworth and Birdland, as well as the aquatic centers would open late all year round. We've highlighted in yellow, of course, what the change is. We'd be open till 8 o'clock all summer. Keep in mind too, we put these slides in order of highest fiscal impact to the least fiscal impact. Also, please know that we worked very, very closely with Jessica in the finance division in terms of how this impacts what the fiscal impact means. She took into consideration the rentals that we would potentially lose, the expense it is for having extra staff on board, the revenue that we would gain potentially staying open longer. So all those were considerations when we landed on this potential fiscal impact.
So on the fiscal impact, when you have SL, does that mean you'd lose 10,800 in revenue? Open swim, you'd lose 109,000 revenue. In other words, you'd have that much more.
So that is correct. That is correct. Great question, Lloyd. Great point. Because you'll see on option 1, as I mentioned, if we're open in the evening, as I go through this, we would reduce our swim lessons by, you can see, 1,159. So you're right, Lloyd. We would not get that revenue in swim lessons. We would, however, you can see, add 95 additional lessons, or excuse me, open swim hours. We would reduce, remember we closed at 6:30 last year, if we're going to be open later, that's a time where we had some private rentals, and we wouldn't have those, and that's how we came about that number. So the fiscal impact for option 1, you can see is right around 126,000. We go to option 2. This is what we call dinner break. So dinner break is just what it says. Again, Ashworth and Birdland would remain the same under this proposal. Option 2 says that on Monday through Friday, we're open from 1 to 5. We would close the pool and offer swim lessons. You can see 5:15 to 6:50. That's different. Remember, 6:45 is when we started lessons. I'll come back to that. The other proposed change here is on Saturdays, we would be open 11 to 6, where right now it's 1 to 5. So really there's two different changes here. We'd be open, we'd have that dinner break, then we'd be open later, and then we'd open Saturdays. When swim lessons are done, basically starting July 13, you can see we would then remain open from 1 to 8. Does that kind of make sense? So in summary there, you can see swim lessons, how is it impacted? Well, 5:15 to 6:50. The really X factor here is that's kind of an unknown, and that might be a challenge for the traditional working parents to get their kiddos there to a swim lesson by 5:15. We don't know. You can see 162 additional open swim hours. You can see the loss, if you will, in the potential rentals, and you can see the fiscal impact right around $48,000. So that's option 2.
Let me interject on option 2. We have a heck of a time getting some staff now. Now how do you get the staff to come back if we close at 5, and then you're gonna have staff be able to recycle and come back from a 7 to 8:30 shot? I would think for an hour and a half with staff today, I would say that would probably be a challenge.
Could be a challenge.
It could be a challenge, and this is an option that actually is employed, I think if I remember correctly off my memory, West Des Moines has a dinner break.
I believe they do have a dinner break, correct?
So this is something that actually, we researched our suburbs to see what they're doing as well, just not that that's not the end answer. Again, this is, you let them go through one more option, you're gonna see there's not a lot of options. You do this, you get pulled this way, you do this, you get pulled this way. So it's a give and take, but I think you'll see
Do the
option
suburbs
3.
pay more?
Yes, I believe that's the case.
What's that now?
The suburbs pay more. We did adjust our salaries 2 years ago, and actually, as we speak, we're scheduled for Thursday to do our operating budget increases for any proposals we have for the city manager, and we do have a proposal to adjust seasonal wages to give another little notch up to keep us competitive. We'll see how that goes.
So just to be clear though, general public kids would have to leave the pool at 5 o'clock.
Correct.
If they're not in swim lessons, that's correct.
And so basically, it isn't up till 5 o'clock. They'd start, Laura, what time do they start closing? I mean, give them their, 4:30?
At 5. We'd still close at 5.
Yeah.
It's basically that 15-minute window. We'd have to rush them out of there to get some lessons started. So it's tight.
Yeah.
Let's see option 3. Sorry.
Option 3, this one is what we call our later ladder in the season, if you will. So what does that mean? Once again, the Ashworth and Berlin remains the same. You'll see that Saturday, once again, still we're proposing in this option that it's 11 to 6. However, you'll notice that swim lessons are not impacted. We would not change swim lessons and basically start our open later after July 13 when swim lessons are complete. So 1 to 6.
At the swimming pools, do you offer swim lessons after 6:30 p.m.?
Well, last year they were at 6:45, so
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
last year, yes. And of course, in summary, no change to the swim lessons under this option. We would add 135 more hours. You can see it's about a $2,700 reduction in pool rentals, and you can see there the fiscal impact right around a little over $38,000. So that's option 3. That's option 3. Option 4 is just remain the same. Just remain the same. So as Ben mentioned, there were a total of 6 options. Well, yeah, 6 or 7 at some point in time. We tried to narrow it down. So again, just in summary, those are the options. The factors we want to take a look at is recruiting and retain staff. George, thanks for just at least recognizing that. The opportunity to expand our swim lesson program, and of course the opportunity to increase our open swim time hours. So with that, questions, thoughts, comments?
I'll jump in. So first I'd make the comment about the one with the dinner break schedule. And keep in mind that to some extent my opinions are somewhat colored by my experience of having 4 and 6-year-old kids and working. And then also thinking about, well, what about other families where both parents are working? And the issue is that even at that 6:30 cutoff time, by the time people get off work, like kids go down there, it's just not going to happen. And I think if you do that dinner break, I don't think that 7 to 8:30 improves things any, because we're not going to come home, feed our kids, and then take them out the pools at 7. I mean, it doesn't make sense, really. So when I look at the fiscal impact, then I think, well, the ladder sounds like that's pretty good. It's not that expensive to do that. But I wonder, because the 2 swimming pools that close at 6:30, what would be the impact? And I appreciate, man, there's 50,000 different ways you could schedule this, and I hate to do that to you, but if you went with the ladder, but for the swimming pools, at least expanded that in the ladder months, the July 13th to August 16th, to at least 7 p.m. or maybe do it for the whole summer at 7 p.m. And here's my 2 thoughts on that. One, that extra 30 minutes makes it work. You know, we can get home from work, I can leave work at 5, get the kids, get down there, and you know, by 7 o'clock, it's probably time you want to wrap up and start getting the kids home and get ready for bed anyway. And the second thing is that those last two, that last month of July to August is the hottest time of the year. And it was my observation, it was obvious a lot of people were bringing those kids down there during the hot weather to escape the heat.
Yep.
And if you cut them off at 6:30, again, you're still kind of running into that issue a little bit. Of the 4, I kind of like number 3, but I wonder what it looked like it was tweaked a little bit to where the swimming pools could either mirror what the aquatic centers do, or if that's too much of a hit on the swimming lessons, just like extend it from 6:30 to 7.
So how would that affect us if we went at Ashworth and Berlin till 7 instead of 6:30? So swim lessons would have to start at 7:15?
Yes, in the early part of the season, we would have to shift our swim lessons.
But if I want to make sure I heard you right, so if anybody said this wrong, but if Lloyd's asking if the 2 pools, Ashworth and Berlin, on July 13th, when the new hours kick in for the 3 aquatic centers, they would go to 7, but not before then. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I started thinking about, you know, June early. I mean, it's so
It's cool. You've heard the
sun's going
temperatures.
down earlier. But when you get into summer, then that 6:30 starts to feel
After
like
July 13, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but after July 13, the swim lessons will be done.
Yeah,
So
so-
we can adjust the hours, and really our expenses there are the amount of the hours that it takes to employ more guards. So yeah, it wouldn't impact in-swim lessons. What we have found are stats, Lloyd, interesting, your observation is you've seen lots of people coming in the latter portion of the summer. Well, ironically, from July 13 on, we see the opposite. It's a big dip. First of all, August while it's still very, very hot and even gets hotter, it's not a full month for us, number one. You've got the state fair, you've got the camps, lots of vacations we found, so our attendance has actually dropped quite a bit. So, quite frankly, we listed as one of the disadvantages, wow, maybe we're not getting as many people to take advantage of this because it's the latter portion of the summer. But we still thought we'd offer it.
One thing we didn't mention too, I want to make sure of, it's a new priority of the city council, and it's a pride of ours too. You've heard us speak about the city's equity coordinator. One thing was important to all of us our own time was we had her look at these, and we said to Manisha, what would happen? We don't want to be out there by ourselves saying Ashworth and Berlin get nothing. And she said to us, if you're not reducing hours at anywhere, it's not an equity issue. She says that's the way they look at this as an equity coordinator. I said, even though we're adding, in 3 other neighborhoods or parts of the city where we're not, she said, no, it's not the case. But it doesn't mean that you have a bad idea either. I just want to make sure that we didn't put that in our presentation, but I wanted you to know the layers behind the scenes we went through. We can bring back a 4th option that's going to be later for all 5, right? We need some creative names here. And anything we do, I would say that whatever you decide as a board, you'll have our best interests involved. We get that. We would have to call it a pilot project. I think to be fair to the council is, track it differently. Today, we don't really keep hour by hour attendance really easily, so we'd have to make sure we track those things to see if it's worth the value. This is our first stab at this, and it wouldn't be on your agenda if we didn't feel like it was the best ideas we could come up with.
At our executive meeting, I think we were unanimous in number 3, option 3, if I'm not mistaken. Was that correct? Option number 3.
Yeah, that was correct.
I don't think we need a 4th option. I think what we need to do is possibly look at 3 with tweaking number 3. But I do want to say I have 2 areas of concern. One of them is, it seems like in August, we run short of staff, and then we have to, rotate pool closings and stuff. So here we are, we're saying that's the toughest time of the year to keep employees, but yet we're going to extend the hours. And we've done that the last 3 years, I think, where we've closed a pool on a Wednesday and then another one on a Tuesday, rotating around and stuff. What if what if we had the option to make one situation? Do we run into areas of the town because we're keeping, 4 quadrants in Des Moines? And what if we just did one pool? Or do you think it's important to do all?
Here's what I ran into. So I was here when the library changed hours, and I saw the negative feedback they got is, okay, you go to the North Library on Monday, you go to the South Side on Tuesday, and nobody liked it. And it's really a nightmare when it comes to marketing these hours and educating the public. So that was one of our concerns too, is how do you make sure, because it can actually backfire really negatively for all of us if somebody shows up and it's not open, and even though we posted it, is why isn't this pool open? So we were trying to make sure it was something we could easily tell a story on, and no matter what we do, we're going to give up something in this analysis. You're going to give up either swim lessons, you're going to give up the expertise of being able to have one unified set of hours. You see what I'm saying? That way, nothing was really easy here. So I mean, we could though. I kind of like the idea of going till 7 at the other 2 pools, and I think you can still tell that story. This is my opinion. I'm open to board members' thoughts. Is that if you're open till 7, you still gave those 2 pools something, and you're not asking. It's not as big as a lift for staff. A half hour. It's still going to be a lift, and staff has the best intentions. But when August rolls around, things start calling their attention away. The grind of the season, right? Let's go on back to college. Just get in our fall sports. Those things that happen.
Lloyd, on option 3, looking at that, is 8 o'clock, are you locked in your thought at 8 o'clock, or would a 7:30 or even a 7 o'clock at expanding it a half hour, would that make a difference?
Yeah, at the swimming pools, I'd ask staff to maybe look at what it would do to tweak that from a 6:30 close to a 7 o'clock close or 7:30 close. I mean, if you find out that the fiscal difference is really minimal, to have that extra 30 minutes and then extend it to 7:30, if it's...
Let us tweak this for next time, this option. Is it safe to say, I saw some head nods, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, that let's focus on option 3. We'll leave the do nothing there because that's what our city manager has to see, both of those 2 things compared. We'll look at, and if I heard this correctly, we'll look at maybe dialing back after July 13th to 7:30 and dialing up at the 2 pools till 7 Monday through Saturday, keeping the new Saturday hours and giving more Saturday open swim hours. I mean, that's another thing for families that have more hours during a Saturday. And we'll adjust the physical impact and we'll see what that does. Is that all right?
That sounds good.
Sounds like a plan.
And then going back to the attendance of 96,000, and we only had 179 responses. I don't think we can put any credence in that survey whatsoever.
It's hard. We try. We actually talked to people at the pool that would want to talk to us, and it wasn't a priority. They're at the pool. They're having fun. It's not time to fill out a survey. But we tried social media and our website, and usually we get good attendance in those type of surveys. But
I guess one question we didn't ask is how many season pass holders do we have? We talked
How many
about
what,
total attendance,
Jim?
but how many pass holders?
do you know how many pass holders off the top of your head? It's a random question, but I don't know if you have it. We'll test her 1 year on the job knowledge real quick here.
Roughly.
How about tomorrow we can email that to you then?
Yeah, I was just curious against that, against the 179. Is that 5% of the season pass holders, or 10%, or 20%?
Laura, you don't have that information at the top of your head? I'm disappointed.
We'll talk about it. No. We can email it tomorrow through Rebecca. We'll dial option 3 in, and we'll bring that back at the next meeting, if that's...
And I thought I heard Lloyd say to 7 maybe, rather
At
than 8.
least to 7, and kind of leave staff discretion if they think they can tweak it
7.
further.
We'll talk about what that does to marketing hours, to swim lessons, to staff. We'll bring you back something though. It's very helpful. We appreciate it. As you can see, it's a...
Or like I said, maybe dial back aquatics to 7:30 and expand the swimming pools to 7:30 so you have your
balance them a little
consistent marketing.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Any other questions for John? John, your staff, you did a great job on this presentation. I know that I can remember back when initially this was done to cut back hours, and that was a far more vocal group of moving forward. But interestingly enough, I don't think that we've had much feedback or much complaining on this in the last 4 or 5 years. But, I do think Lloyd has legitimate points. Well, are there any other questions for John?
I appreciate the amount of work you went into putting it in, that for something that is extremely complicated, you made this very easy to walk through the spreadsheet and look at it. So thank you very much, because I know you guys had to spend a lot of time on that.
Thanks.
John, are you the inventor of option number 1, where we close at 5 and reopen at
5:30.
That's Laura. Laura's that option.
Okay. Okay, with no more questions, we can
Thank you.
motion
We
to
appreciate
receive
it.
and file.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
And George, we did not receive and file the aquatic season report.
Let's do both.
Boy, you're catching me today. I wonder what's wrong with me.
I think you're just so focused tonight on
Well, I am focused on a lot of things. Okay, so we just did the proposed aquatic hours. Now we'll go back to the aquatic season report, a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
You two are on a roll today. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, this next one ought to be pretty easy. I know you have to go, Jim.
All right, chapter 114, so I'll bring up the Director of Ordinance Revisions. That's Richard Brown. He's all he gets to do lately. He's looking at chapter 114, which governs traffic and rules of traffic and speeds. And again, Ann and Richard have done some pretty good work. So I'll let Richard go over it.
Chair Davis, members of the Parks and Recreation Board, Richard Brown, Assistant Director. The good thing is there's only about 200 chapters in the city ordinance, so we're over halfway there. So a couple more months we should be done. No, this is just a quick section we want to clean up. That's some things that have been talked about for a long time on our park roads, where you can park within the park system, and just getting rid of some language that's similar to what we did in Chapter 74. So there's a small section of Chapter 114 that applies to roads and speed limits within the park system. And so what we're proposing tonight is a consistent 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on any park road. And you can see in the communication all the roads that we consider park roads. This does not consider, like we talked about previously, Waterworks Park, any Polk County-owned park within the city limits, just city parks and publicly owned city parks. Another thing is some parking restrictions. There were some very odd, specific parking restrictions to Grandview Park that we felt like weren't needed anymore, so we're proposing to have those removed. And then changing the violation from $15 to $50. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Bring this up tonight, too.
Why'd you decide on 20 instead of 15?
So 20 was pretty standard across the country that people are using in parks and residential zones. 15 is almost too slow to be moving without doing anything to your vehicle. And 20 is really where people felt like you can get to where you're going, but at the same time, if you happen to hit someone while you're going 20 miles an hour, the statistics are very, very low that someone would be killed.
Also, you talked to the city's traffic engineers and our Jeff Wiggins, I can't.
Yeah, transportation planners.
Our transportation planners and traffic engineers. So we did some research, we asked them their opinions. There's also if you didn't know this, there's a traffic safety committee that's made up of citizens just like you fine folks that look at this. And so Richard's on their agenda just to get their blessing, but we've talked to them behind the scenes. They feel like this is a good recommendation too. Another added level.
Thank you.
Real quick, just, it's not directly related, but like snow clearing and maintenance of these roads are borne by Park and Rec budget, even though they're kind of like cities.
Yeah, they're just not classified. They're classified under the classification of parkland. Anything that falls within that land is the infrastructure, utilities, et cetera, are ours. So we get the responsibility. But I can tell you that just recently, and Ron Ward's done a really good job managing this, is we have a unified snow plan that's evolved for about 7 years where Parks and Public Works get together behind the scenes and we come up with a plan. And the age-old discussion of why is Grays Lake done before my neighborhood street and I'm trying to go to work, and the angst of that, and they don't understand there's two different operations. So today, when Public Works determines the amount of snow, it's usually around 2 inches. It changes a little bit here or there, but depending on how heavy the snow is and wind and et cetera, they employ all of the men and women that we have to help them. And there's a priority order. We dump the box out, we put everything in a priority order. We get to keep a few staff back, and those stay in high priority areas. Again, Grays Lake will continue to be done before your neighborhood. Here's why. If people come at 5 a.m., it's a liability. If they start packing the snow down, not only does it beat up our equipment, we can't get it off, then we have slip and falls and we find ourselves behind in closed session, making payments. So we don't want to be there at Grays Lake in our trail system. So we keep people back for that purpose, but the majority of all our folks help And that's a long answer for what you asked me, but it is still underneath our dime, but they help us now, back and forth, we share resources. Good question.
Anything else on the speed limit?
Thanks.
Richard, thank you very much. No questions for Richard on that? Okay. Let's have let me see if I got this right. Let's have a motion to receive and file. And Joel, would you like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Andre, you want to say? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, my report is an overview of a recent special event in year 2, our Fall Family Fun Fest, and Matt and his team lead that, so I'll let Matt give you an overview.
Thank you, Ben. Chair Davis, members of the Park and Recreation Board, Matt Kalsevich, Recreation Manager. As Ben mentioned, thank you for the opportunity to give you an event review of the Fall Family Fun Fest. This year we held the event on Saturday, September 28th. This was 2 weeks earlier than we did in its inaugural year. Really just trying to put ourselves in the best window possible for weather and to host the event as we envision. This year we were also a change, 1 to 4 p.m., so a little earlier in the day. Again, something to really try and target families and people who would really enjoy the scope of activity we had available. And we were again over at Union Park. Some of the partners we worked with, City of Des Moines Police and Fire, graciously supported the event as they have in the past. The Union Park Neighborhood Association, I'll talk a little bit more about their specific involvement here a little later on. The Heritage Carousel, and then we did have 2 generous sponsors for our second annual food eating competitions, Taco John's and Papakino's Pizza. Another new element of the event this year was our first ever triathlon, and thank you to Jen Fletcher, our marketing supervisor, for introducing this as a concept and an idea to layer in as part of our offerings through recreation. You can see some of the participants there in our first run, ride, and it was meant to be splash, but because of the cooler weather, even the event being moved up into the late part of September, some cooler weather earlier in the week put us in a position to change the last part of the event to a bounce. And we had the bouncers there for them to enjoy. But this was for participants 8 years old and younger. It was a pre-registration event, so just $10. Participants could bring their own bike, and you see some of them in that middle picture riding on our tennis court there at Union Park, or they could have used one that we provided through Parks and Rec. And then medals were awarded to all the participants. You can see down at the bottom there, one of our young participants going through the finish line. So about 15 participants in this first year. This is an event that we know happens over in Omaha, where they've had about 80 to 100 participants, so we think there's a lot of opportunity to grow, an exciting aspect of this year's event. As I mentioned, we had our second annual food eating contest. At 2 o'clock, we hosted a pizza eating competition. At 3 o'clock, we had apple pie. These are 6-minute competitions, and we had prizes, mainly of Park and Rec items, but some generous donations as well by our sponsors. And we use picnic-style rules for these competitions, where the food is meant to be consumed as it was intended. So traditionally eating as you would at a picnic, at a family event, theoretically, of course. Quinn down in the left corner, our apple pie champion, and then we actually had a tie in our pizza eating competition, Yin and Tom. Again, just a lot of excitement and fun around these events, and that's the target of it. Papakino's with the pizza, and again, just something we are excited to have be part of our offerings. As I mentioned, we had the Union Park Neighborhood Association very active in this year's event, and it was very much targeted at the 125th anniversary celebration of the park. They had a ride from Peachtree in the downtown up to the park, which also incorporated a bike decorating event and parade at 11 a.m. At 12:30, they opened up a history display in the west shelter there of the park and gave away free hot dogs and other food to people enjoying the park on that day, and then who were there specifically for our event. At 2:30, our good friend of Parks and Recreation and volunteer extraordinaire, Steve Nelson Vox, who many of you know, led a history park walk that really highlighted the origins of the park and some of the progression of the layout of the park over the years. This was such a good connection, and again, very specifically this year for the 125th anniversary celebration, we invited, and many of you know Jack Doherty, the neighborhood president, the neighborhood association to be involved in future events, specifically the Fall Family Fun Fest there at Union Park, and they're excited for a continued partnership. So a wonderful addition to this year's event, so much so that we're hoping to partner again with them in the future. Just leave you with some other images from the event. I mentioned police and fire. We had the bouncers that we did, a little more from the triathlon and the food eating competition. We had about 350 people come out to enjoy the event. A little weather in the morning may have scared a few people off, but it was beautiful between those hours of 1 and 4. So again, so glad to have offered this to the community for a second year. Look forward to bringing this back again for a third next year. Thank you for the opportunity to share a short recap with you. I'd be happy to try and answer any other questions you have at this time.
Questions for Matt?
I love that. I love the tricathlon.
Did you say?
I love the tricathlon.
Oh.
Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
That's so cute.
Maybe have a board member vision next year, and we'll let you guys all try it.
It was a fun event and a lot of room for growth, absolutely.
That's fine.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Nice job. As we move on to the report of the chair and boards, we'll start. Well, Andrea, we want to take time to congratulate you on your new job promotion, and you looked great on TV when you were hosting that, what was it, the forum? And
Canada
looked
Forum.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your job.
Sure. I was promoted last week to Senior Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. So I'll lead our policy team and spend more time at the Capitol and leading strategy for partnership and our 360 plus investors and 6,400 plus members. And I'm extremely excited.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Now with that, who's going to do the urban conservation? Vicki or Andrea?
Want to go ahead?
We didn't really cover any business this time. We went on a field trip. So we went over to Whitmer Park today, or on, when was that? Last Thursday. And did a tour of the park, which was fantastic. Colby took us on a wonderful walk through there, and everything looks great. It's really exciting to see everything coming together. And we look forward to, he's going to take us on another tour. We couldn't quite squeeze in 2 parks in an hour and a half, so we'll get it in there the next time.
Thank you very much. Moving to the golf committee, now we're going to have a little bit of adjustment here because Steve is going to the citizen side of it, and I'm recommending that we appoint, just a minute here, I have it right down here in my notes, Sam has agreed to go back to the golf committee, and then keeping it so we're fair among everyone, I looked at Cindy Fanter's golf scores from this summer, and Cindy, clearly, you had such a higher score than it, almost double over, what? Oh, I'm sorry, it's the low score.
No, it's the high score.
So I would recommend that Cindy Fanter be on the committee too, so that will require approval as we move forward. So golf committee adjustment.
Just a procedural reminder, this is your take. You guys can make this decision at the table. Citizen members that go on to those 4 subcommittees, we bring to you in a written format. So what we ask tonight is help us, once you make your decision, we then start the clock on bylaws, which means term limits and starts. So that's what we'll do tonight if you make your decisions. So.
Do we need a motion?
I don't know if we need a motion.
Approve the golf committee?
Just to record when they start so we know what the term limits are. We don't
All
have a
right.
motion for that, do we?
I'll make a move to that Sam and Cindy are appointed to the Citizen Golf Advisory Committee.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I should buy more stuff tonight. You guys are to move the motions.
Oh my goodness, they're just dominating it. Let's go to the, well, now here he'll become very silent. Let's go to the let's go to the cemetery committee.
I was not able to attend we had a field trip actually at our last meeting. I was not able to attend, but we will be back to business at our next meeting coming up in a couple weeks.
And I want to thank you for bringing your 2 kids tonight. I'm sure that they are so happy to be here.
Yeah, you see, they're not even paying attention.
We only have another hour. Your kids are fine. Okay, and Jim left. He had an engagement to get to, and Sarah's not here, so trails and greenways will be on hold. So with that being said, any other additional information that people want to bring up? Ben?
Maybe it's on your list too, so stop me if it is, but in the last few years, we've foregone our December meeting because it's tight. It's the fourth Tuesday, and you all and on staff is all out with holiday. So we'd like to, as long as there's no urgent need to meet with the board, we would post it at the November agenda that we will forego that, but we'd ask you to replace that requirement with attending one of the 4 city budget meetings. I think that's an important thing for this board to do. I'll have Rebecca, if she hasn't already done so, send those dates and locations out to you, but the city council is going to host a budget forum in one ward of the city, all 4. Well, I'll get it, but 1 meeting in each ward in the next month or so. So as long as the November agenda, there's some receive and file actions, if they go as planned and we're able to keep moving those items forward, no December meeting, but in lieu of that, we'd ask you to attend a budget meeting.
Let's put that in motion. Motion to not have the December general meeting, board meeting, and with a recommendation that we attend one of the budget meetings. Fair enough? Is someone going to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, there we go. All those in favor of no December meeting, raise your hand. Actually, that would fall around December the 20th too. So, all those in favor of no December meeting? Okay, all those opposed? Okay.
Last thing I'll ask is that you make a motion that director does not have to go to any more council meetings. Since you're in such a good mood here, I'll just try that real quick. All right, that one failed.
I'll tell you what, did anyone, am I the only one that watches council meetings on TV? I will tell you, that was about a 5-hour shot. I couldn't believe that. Okay, with that being said, and no one else has a comment? Anyone?
Chair Davis,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. See you in a month.